It's the row that's engulfed a British Paralympic team.
Yeah, basketball players George Bates and Oscar Knight have been told that under new rules, they're no longer disabled enough to play for their country, and both join us now to explain more. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. So, first things first, can you tell us about the new rule change and what it means to you guys?
So I'll go first.
Thanks, George.
There's been a dispute between the Paralympic Committee and the International Wheelchair Basketball Federation of classification, and the new rules only cover a certain 10 classes of disability. So people that don't fit into those 10 points essentially are classed out of the sport and can't play at the Paralympics.
But George, you've played for your country, you've won medals for your country, you've helped your country qualify for the Paralympics.
Yeah.
And now you're told you can no longer play.
Yeah, so it kind of, for me, it ruins the whole integrity of the qualification, because if I'm another team, we've qualified with now an ineligible player. So I think the timing of the rule change in itself is pretty terrible. The fact that a few weeks before the games would have started, I'd have been told that I'm ineligible doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
No, I mean, the decision itself seems absurd and heartless, and the change just seems, the timing just seems absolutely ludicrous.
It seems a little bit like you've been left in no man's land here, because you can't do able-bodied Olympics, you can't now do Paralympics. I mean, where are we at? What do we do?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue. Like, I use a crutch to walk around. I've had this condition for 15 years, so there's no chance I can ever play able-bodied sport or even try to play. So now I can't play in the Paralympics. Like, what do I do? Are they going to create a middle ground for people that don't quite fit in? It doesn't really make much sense.
Guys, can we talk a little bit about the condition you both live with, which is called complex regional pain syndrome? Oscar, I wonder if you could explain this to us if people aren't familiar with it at home.
Yeah, I'll try and explain it in like the simplest form because it's quite complicated. So basically there's two types. You can get it either randomly or from an injury, and most of the time it's from an injury, and basically it's a nerve disorder. So if you have that injury, and then there's a chance you can contract complex regional pain syndrome from that. And basically it's the nerves from that affected limb are sending signals to the brain saying that you're in constant pain all the time, so 24/7 non-stop.
And what I didn't know is the initial injury can be relatively innocuous, and to bring about the condition. Is that correct?
Yeah, it can pretty much. It can start in one limb, move to others. It's pretty, yeah. So
this is an extraordinary condition to have to live with, and then you take the time and the effort to get into a sport, and then you're obviously very good at that sport, and so to now be told that you can't compete in that sport must be frustrating and heartbreaking.
Yeah, exactly. You know, when I first sort of got into wheelchair basketball, the first thing I watched was Paralympics, and I literally couldn't stop watching it, and that's kind of like the main thing I had in my mind. You know, I want to play at that level, and obviously just because wrong kind of disabled or whatever, however way you want to phrase it, it's just, yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's just unbelievable, to be honest with you. And it kind of makes me feel like the level that you've actually got to, you've worked so hard. And I'm sure whatever happens now, there's lots of the children who are looking up to you guys, seeing what's going to happen. And they're thinking, well, what am I going to do if I can't compete in the Paralympics? Where do we go from here? Have you heard from any of your peers at all?
There's quite a few people with sort of not, it's more like, because there's obviously quite a lot of disabilities on the list. So there's, you know, you've got like hypermobility and a load of others, and, you know, it's just, yeah, and my main thing really is, you know, if somebody like even younger than me is coming into the sport, has one of those non-eligible disabilities and, you know, gets really good, and their coach is like, oh, that's great, but you can't, so you have to stay at this level, you can't go any further. It's just going to drive people away from the sport.
It's unbelievable. And the IPC said pain and hypermobility of joints are eligible, but amputated lower limbs are eligible, but amputated lower limbs are. And you've actually considered amputating your legs. Is that true?
Yeah, because, well, when I first got it in my legs, because it originally started in my right knee and it spread down to both my lower extremities. And, yeah, like when I was younger, being 9, 10 years old and not, you know, I used to play football and stuff like that, and not being able to have a sport or anything was heartbreaking, and the only thing I had on my mind is I want my legs gone. I don't want them there at any cost, or they bring it me as pain and just awful stuff, you know. And finding basketball kind of made me accept what it is, and you know, there's other people with worse or you know similar disabilities, and you know, it made me accept them. And now that you know my potential career could be taken away, it just makes me sort of want to get rid of them again, because there's no point in them.
And George, similarly, you consider that there was a moment where you were offered amputation and you said no, and actually in retrospect you're saying you almost regret that.
Well, it's always going to be there. I never really thought I'd have my disability questioned when it's medically kind of proven. And so it is there, but to have an amputation can take years for it to go through that process and get it right. But I think the main issue is kind of like Oscar was saying, I've had hundreds of messages from people from all sports and different disabilities that aren't deemed as eligible. And to think where I was and what mental state I was in when I was 13 or 14 after having an injury, and anyone that's had an injury or an accident will go through that sort of dark kind of pit, really. Basketball's the only thing that got me through it. Other than, I'm not sure where I'd be without that. And to have that taken away from kids now, I can't really accept that. So I feel like we have responsibilities of athletes and to sort of make a stand to this, because I know for me it was the only thing that kind of got me through it.
Of course.
And I need to kind of.
And in a world where we say we're so attuned to mental health, the decision just seems so callous.
Yeah.
So okay, I'm sure people are watching this with incredulity. What can people do if they're watching at home? Is there a petition they can sign? I think you mentioned you've got one, and I think we can put it up for you. You know, what would you want people to do at home to do?
Yeah, so signing the petition is probably the best thing for the people at home to be able to do, because that's just going to go to show the Paralympic Committee that a lot of people think that there should be a rule change. This isn't just about me or about Oscar and wheelchair basketball. This kind of affects thousands of now current and future athletes from competing in sport. So for the general person, it's just that to show the support that this is wrong and something needs to kind of be looked at. It doesn't need to be changed, but things need to be added to kind of include all disabilities, because for a lot of people, this sport's the only thing that they have.
And George, is your governing body behind you on this?
Yeah, they are. So they're working on like an appeal that I will be going through. Behind the scenes, I've been offered support if I require it. But for the minute, I'm pretty good and pretty motivated to kind of try and force a change here.
So just so we're clear, are you working with the International Wheelchair Basketball Federation, or?
So I have to appeal to them as they're applying IPC's rules. So I have to appeal to them. I'm working with my national governing body, which is the British Wheelchair Basketball.
Gotcha.
And I'm working with them to challenge the IWBF's decision, but it is the IPC's decision at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, listen, we wish you the very best of luck. I mean, it just seems absurd. The International Wheelchair Basketball Federation responded to our request for a statement. They said that they still fully believe that sport should be inclusive to anyone with an eligible lower limb impairment. However, the IWBF must meet compliance in order with the demands of the IPC. We'll continue to investigate and raise the issues to the IPC membership.
IPC, you need to change the rules. Come on, let's change the rules.
That's what I'm talking about, Alison.
Silly.
Cut to the chase, just say it.
Yeah.
Thank
Change
you.
the rules. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Thank you so much, and good luck with everything.
Thank you, guys. Best of luck.
Thank you. Cheers.
Absurd, that, isn't it?
It's really sad, and it's supposed to be such an inclusive sport.